You want to see my palette collection? Somehow, the words "careful what you wish for" come to mind. Are you wondering what I'm talking about? Just stick around. Hi there, it's Hélène, and welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time, to HMM Makeup, or Makeup. In the teaser, I said careful what you wish for, and I mean it. I have been asked, based on the first poll that I was able to do on the community tab that is new to this channel, woohoo! I was able to do a poll, and you told me unequivocally that you wanted to see a palette collection video. The problem is it would have been 2 hours long. I'm not kidding. So I have broken it up into 4 parts for you. This is part number 1. And in part number 1, I'm going to be taking care of the big guys in my collection, namely Urban Decay, Tarte, and ABH, or Anastasia Beverly Hills. Now, it's not all the palettes necessarily from those 3 brands, because I have some face palettes kind of peppered in to parts 2 to 4, but you'll see the majority of those 3 brands in this first part. If you are curious for parts 2, 3, and 4, what it is that I'll be covering, you can definitely see it in a section called Products Mentioned in the description box, and that will let you know if it is something that you want to take a look at or if you're going to skip any one part of it. I have to say, I like my palettes, and I hope you'll find these this 4-part series on the palette collection I have interesting and hopefully somewhat entertaining. Okay, we are here where you usually see this shelf, which is right behind me when I'm filming, and I usually have my palettes all displayed here and on the shelf below me. And I am going to use this little corner as a nice little light box to show you my makeup collection, specifically all palettes, whether they are face palettes or whether they are eyeshadow palettes. And that was the #1 requested item in the community poll that I offered up as my first post for a community poll, which I'm so grateful to be able to do because I can bring you the content that you want. And I hope you are bracing yourself because we are talking about 265 palettes. I will try to go quickly and offer only the insights that I think matter in order to give you some context for the palettes that I'm showing you. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to start showing. First, I think I'm going to go with a love of mine, which is the Urban Decay line. I am quite a fan of Urban Decay and I have quite a few palettes, so let's start off with a few face palettes. I have some from Jean-Michel Basquiat. This is a quad 2 blushes, a highlighter, and bronzer. I do quite like this palette and I do bring it with me when I travel. This is the Afterglow palette from Urban Decay. If I can open it, there's what it looks like. And there are 4 highlighters in here and I do very much love these 2 and Wicked down here. Since I showed the Jean-Michel Basquiat, I'll show you the 2 palettes that are part of this collection. There is this one that is a more neutral palette, and it came with a brush. And this is a nice one for just a basic look, but I don't use it very often because I'm not that big on basics, but I love the artwork on it. And then this is the one that I'm more prone to use, and I love it because it has the brush that is the same as the electric palette brush. Very good for colorful looks, and XOXO is my absolute favorite green. Next up, we have the holiday palette from last year, the Elements palette, and I had a love-hate relationship with this palette. I ended up really liking it in the end, but at the very beginning I was not a fan of it, in part because of the package, but we have since made friends, so that's good. Then a few Moondust shadows. There's the original Moondust that I got from my friend Lillian, and as you can see, I use it. It's quite sparkly, and I really do enjoy the shadows, especially Granite, Lithium, Galaxy, and Magnetic. And since we're on Moondust shadows, I'll show you the Party Favor, which is all different from the Moondust palette, the original Moondust palette. They are smaller pans though, but I did end up liking it. I got it in a mystery box from Urban Decay, and as it turns out, I'm happy I have it. I also have the Naked Basics palette, which is a fantastic palette. I sent it as well to my friend Steph because I just think it's a perfect companion palette for any kind of colorful Urban Decay palette. And it has, again, that brush with the tiny precision brush on the one end that can be used as a liner, very much like this palette. And I have gifted it a few times because I think it's really good. A few smaller palettes. I have the original Naked Basics. I do like this palette. I have used it a number of times, but I have to admit that when I found out about the Naked Basics 2, I have wanted it for quite a long time, and it is, out of the two, it is my preference. And finally, I did pick up the Naked Petite Heat because it came on on sale, although I have not yet used it. It was half off, so I nabbed it because I know that I would use it. Now for an older one, the Full Spectrum. I use this palette very much for inspiration when I want to take a look at essentially the color wheel, and that is the #1 reason that I use it. I haven't used it that much on my eyes, although I have used the greens and the golds in here and the purples the most. Third would be the pinks over on this side. Again, I like the brush. I do like the fact that there is a full mirror in this palette, but it is such a great color reference to me that I do enjoy using it quite a bit for that purpose. It's a source of inspiration for me. One that I really do like that got a lot of hate a few years ago as a holiday palette is the Heavy Metals palette, and it is very blingy. So let me just put my hand over the mirror. And it has 10 more neutral shades and 10 very colorful shades when it comes to kind of metallic colors. And when I want something on the lid and I'm not sure what it is that I want to put on the lid, I will come to this palette because it just makes it so easy to pick something. Another palette that I actually ended up liking quite a bit, I avoided this palette for quite a while and then just ended up getting it when it went half off. And I do actually quite like it. The few looks that I've done with it, I enjoyed quite a bit. I was quite happy with the swatches as well. And these two columns that I thought would not be my friend ended up creating some really nice looks. So I am not shy about this palette anymore. I think it's pretty decent. And for 21 shades for a travel palette, it really is a decent palette for travel. Not that I'm traveling anytime soon. This one will never leave my collection. It is iconic. It is fantastic Urban Decay product. It has that brush that I love that's also in the Jean-Michel Basquiat. And those colors, I do not want the wired palette. To me, this one is perfection, and I have not been interested in the wired palette whatsoever. I love Savage. I love Freak. These pink and purple are absolutely fantastic. Thrash, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm not so big on the blues at all, but I never am in palettes. And a lot of these are almost identical to the Radioactive from Melt. Just a few more. This is a newer palette from Urban Decay. This is the Stoned Vibes. And I really didn't know what I was going to think about this palette, but as it turns out, I think it's pretty decent. I have used a number of the special shades in here so far, and every single look that I've done, I've really enjoyed. I heard some concerns about Third Eye, but I have not had any issues with it, and all of the other mattes have been just fine, although this one is more of a satin than a matte. I do appreciate how many of the palettes from Urban Decay have brushes. Some people don't care. I really do like it. Now I've got a face palette here, which is the Naked Skin Shapeshifter. And I do like this palette when I need to be out and about. So there's a powder side with a highlighter, just a basic powder, bronzer and contour. And then on this side are the cream products. And they are pretty reasonable. This is probably the one that I use the least. Speaking of cream color or cream palettes, I also have a lipstick palette that I sometimes use, not as often as I thought I would. It's a palette with a lip brush, and as you can see, I have used the lipsticks in here. There are 5 total, and there's a mirror as well. And finally, I have the mini from the Stoned collection, which is 6 shadows. They are a nice complement to the other palette, and there are no duplicates. I said finally, but I still have my Naked palettes to show you. I was very late in the game. I picked up the original Naked when it was almost going bye-bye. I just decided I wanted it because I was not interested in the Reloaded, but I did want the original Naked, and so I did pick it up, and I have used it very little. But it is on my list of palettes to explore more because I do like the range of shades, and I feel like if I could only have one Naked palette out of the first 4 or 5, this would be the one that I would want. Then we've got the Naked 2. I won't spend a lot of time on these because everybody knows them so well. So there's the Naked 2, the Naked 3, the Naked Smoky. This is one of my favorites out of the Naked palettes. I don't know why it did not get more love. Then we have the Naked Heat. I do like this one, but I don't like it as much as I thought I would. Then we have the Naked Cherry. I do quite like this one, especially the colors more on this end of the palette are pretty decent. Although I have not used it as much as I initially thought that I would, probably because I have quite a few palettes with berry colors in them. Now this one I really, really like. I did a number of looks on this channel with it. I really love Lucid, Optimized, Warning, Cyberpunk, Euphoric. It are colors that really remind me of 24/7 Glide-On pencils. I really, really, really like this palette. It is absolutely in my top few of the Naked line, and I cannot believe how much hate it has received because I think it's so good. And another palette that I think is fantastic, but that for some reason I don't use very much, is the Naked Honey. I have no idea why I don't use this one. I mean, you'll see that I have somewhere in the very middle shades, but for some reason I don't really use this palette all that much. I have no idea why. And the Naked line is one that I want to give more love to, and so you'll probably see me doing some looks with this palette sooner than later. I almost forgot, I wanted to show you some singles that I have from Urban Decay and a palette that is made specifically for the singles. So I have 10 of these singles here in this case. The lighter colored ones are Moondust shadows that are absolutely beautiful. And this one is one that I use for travel to put in 4 singles that of my choice so that I can make kind of a palette on the go. And these pop out of the single casing into this palette. So this is the last set of 4 that I brought with me on the last trip when we could travel. And one mega palette that you will see always behind me in videos. This is a palette of 20 single Urban Decay shadows again. This was the 20th anniversary vault. And you'll see a bunch of liners. These liners are always behind me. It comes with the 20 liners that came with the 20th holiday kit, but you also see all the extra liners that I have accumulated from Urban Decay, and I go into this box virtually every day for my eyeliners. One other thing that I want to mention is if you're curious to know where I store my palettes, I always have 2 sets of palette holders back here. And this is how I store my palettes. They are nail polish container holders. And I have found they are fantastic for as trays for my palettes. So I have 2 trays on this shelf, and you'll also see in my videos 2 trays on the bottom shelf. I store all of my face and eyeshadow palettes in these guys. Now let's go to another predictable brand, and that is Tarte. I do have the 3 Tartelette palettes. So this is actually my favorite of the 3, and I have barely used it, but I have big plans for it in the coming year. So that is the original Tartelette. The Tartlet in Bloom, which is the most popular one, I am not really big on at all. And you'll see that it's virtually untouched. It just does not call to me, and it's probably a palette that I should just pan in a utilitarian way because it just doesn't speak to me, but there are a lot of neutrals that I could use as the base for a look. And then finally, the Tartlet Toasted, which is, I find, just too warm for me. But I do keep it though as a reference because it is mentioned as comparison for a lot of the newer palettes that come out. Next is a bronzer palette that I absolutely love, and I noticed it was on sale at Sephora this fall, and I really, really enjoy it. I enjoy these bronzers quite a bit. I have used these lighter powders quite a bit. Carrot and Crown are the two that I don't use as much, but there's quite a bit of wear in Princess Cut and Angle for sure, and it has a beautiful mirror as well. I really, really wanted this palette when it came on for half off, and I'm really happy that I got it. Another one I'm very happy that I got, and I ended up getting it quite late in the game. It mysteriously showed up again on the Tarte website, and I was able to nab it. I was so happy. It's the Make Believe in Yourself. And I have used these shadows quite a bit, including the highlighter in the middle. I think it's great for just adding a pop of color on the inner to center lid. And I use it in a very similar way to the Heavy Metals palette. And it's just beautiful to look at, and it smells wonderful. Next, a couple of palettes that I've always liked, but I am getting more use out of. And this is the Tartiste Pro, the original. And also the Tartiste Pro Remix, which, as it turns out, I'm really shocked, I like it even more than the original Tartiste Pro. I have been reaching into it, especially these middle shades, to do an inner to 2/3 of the lid accent. I absolutely love flow, splatter, outside the lines, and DIY. They are fantastic. They're just so beautiful on my eye color. Absolutely love them. If I'm out and about, I do really like the Tartiste Pro To Go. I have brought it with me on a few trips. They are just no nonsense shadows, and the fact that there are 3 mattes and 3 shimmers, shimmers/metallics, I think is fantastic. Plus it has a mirror in addition to the palette. It is a beautiful little palette. Then I have some face products. This is the newest one to my collection from Tarte, and I have to say that, actually, no. This one is the newest one, but it's not a new palette. This is the newest one as far as newer palettes, and I have really yet to use it. I have used one, actually these guys I've used, but I've barely used it, mostly because I have some other blushes that I am focusing on. But I am happy to have had it because I got it for a very decent price, and I do like Tarte blushes. This one is a palette that has made many appearances in this year's videos because I have been panning this cream contour, and I am very much on my way. You'll see it in a different palette that's going to be coming up. I really like the sculpting powder and have used, it doesn't even show, but I have used these highlighters quite a bit. They're all beautiful, and they all are quite flattering on the cheek. And finally, I have the original Clay Play. That is the one that did not survive very long, and I'm happy I have this one because I don't like the one with the blushes. The blush or blushes, I can't remember. I absolutely love this color story, and I tend to go over here. As you can tell, there's more wear on this side, and I do like the face powders. I haven't really used Desert, but I have definitely used Terracotta and Timber. I think this color story is fantastic as a neutral palette that you can pair just about any other palette with. But as I said, I've pretty much kept it to a few colors. Although I have dabbled in most of them, I've gone back more on this side of the palette. I think this is a very underrated palette, despite the fact that I haven't used it very much. It's such a go-to if I want neutrals, but the reason I haven't been using a lot of neutral palettes is because I have been panning my Smashbox matte exposure, and so every other very basic palette has pretty much been ignored, unfortunately. Next up, let's talk Anastasia, and I have a number of face palettes to show you. I did pick up both blush kits that became available a little while ago. I also have the blush trio, but I did not take it out because I don't really consider it a palette, although I consider these a palette. So 4 beautiful blushes for light medium skin here. And I also picked up the gradient as well as the radiant because I love these blushes as eyeshadows, especially this one is gorgeous and I have used it quite a few times. Actually, all of these 4, I probably use the gradient more often than the radiant because of the nature of these shadows. They are fantastic and I'm quite fair. This one is one of the newest ones in my collection, but it arrived to me from Anastasia broken. 4 of the 6 are broken if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I did repress them, but they are really, really nice highlighters to do an accent on the inner 2/3 of the lid. I really like all of them. Magic is fantastic. It does not look at all like it does in the pan. I really enjoy this palette despite the its beat up nature, but it is quite nice and I saw it on for half off on the Anastasia site. Hopefully it's still available. I highly recommend this one if you like kind of a nice punch of sparkly color on your eye. I really don't use it as for regular highlight. I use it mostly on the eye. Another one that I use a lot on the eye is the Aurora. I think it is a beautiful, beautiful palette. I love Helia. This one actually I do use on the cheek as I do Eclipse and Libra. But Spectra and Orion I tend to use on the eye and I love the effect that it gives it. Next we have the Moonchild. That is the newest edition along with the Dream Glow Kit. And I did not think that I was going to get this one, but I'm so happy I did because Lucky Clover is one of my absolute favorite highlighters from Anastasia. I love the green effect of the highlighter. It is absolutely gorgeous. And of course, I'm a sucker for purple, so Purple Horseshoe is just absolutely my jam. Now we get to Anastasia palettes, eyeshadow palettes. This one is one that I would have to have taken out of my cold dead hands. I absolutely love Subculture. It is what made me fall in love with the Anastasia brand. I like every color in here, especially Electric and Destiny. Rowdy is gorgeous. I'm a very, very big fan of this palette. Big, big fan. And now I've got some that it took me a while to get. Soft Glam, I was not sure that I wanted because I felt like it was pretty basic. But as it turns out, I really like this corner of the palette. A lot of these over on this side, I could take or leave. But Mulberry is beautiful. Cypress Umber is beautiful. Sultry is also quite nice. And so I am learning to like this palette more than I thought I would. I really just wanted to know what the fuss was about. And same thing with this one, the Modern Renaissance. I have really not used this palette other than swatching it. And I do have to say Love Letter and Venetian Red are the 2 colors that really make me interested in this palette. Cypress Umber is also in the Soft Glam. And I do like Primavera as well. Burnt Orange, I believe, is also in the Soft Glam. So it's just not, apart from the reds, nothing else really in this palette would make me reach for it specifically. But is it a nice palette? Absolutely. I can understand why there was so much hype around this palette. Next, let's talk about the Norvina. Norvina is one of the newer ones in my collection, even though it was out before a number of other ones that I'm going to show you. And I really do like this color story, but I felt a little bit taken advantage of as a consumer because Soul, Celestial, and Drama are really the only ones that have a purple hue in the palette. And so I think that it was sold as a purple look palette, but it's a lot more like a Soft Glam or a Modern Renaissance than it is a purple palette. That's my only beef with it. I do really love Anastasia shadows. It's just not as purple as I would have liked it to be. Next up, let's talk about the Jackie Aina palette. I really, really like this palette. I have done a number of looks with this palette. If anything, I think this is more of a purple palette than the Norvina because it has some burgundies and also some purples that make it easier to do a purple look. And the purples are quite striking. A lot of the looks that I've made have been with the outer 6 shades in the palette, but every time I have done a look with the first 8, I have been really happy with the color payoff and how the look has turned out. Duola's is fantastic. Sponsored is a beautiful duochrome that acts just like a green-brown duochrome should. And Shookington and Wiggly's are really quite beautiful, as is Zam. They're just, Jackie Aina just did a really good job in curating this palette, no question. This one is really the bee's knees. I am so happy that Paulina Beauty raved about the Amrezy palette because it really is gorgeous. Barb is everything that people tell me that it is, no question. The Anastasia shadow, if you just want a gorgeous eye, that is an easy one to go for. Cupcake created a beautiful look. Leo, I'm not very big on blues, but it is beautiful. Gemini is more glittery than I would like, but in the pen, it's beautiful. And of course, the mattes perform well as they normally do in Anastasia shadows. But Barb, Cupcake, and Anastasia are really the 3 shadows in this palette that make me want to open it and use it. And it is unusual because it has more eyeshadow than a typical Anastasia palette because it has 16 as opposed to 14. Next, this palette is one that I absolutely love, and I think it is one of the easiest palettes to work with, believe it or not, and it's the Alyssa Edwards palette. I also love the plastic cover of this palette. It makes it very easy to deal with and clean. And these shadows they can look intimidating, but wow, have they been beautiful to use. I love these 2 at the end. Believe is a gorgeous color. Beyond created a beautiful, beautiful look. And BBDC, I definitely used Unicorn Tribe up here. I definitely used, as I did Inspire, HOE, Headliner for the brow bone. Every one of these colors, when I first opened it, I thought, what the heck am I going to do with it? It's actually easier to use than one might think. And as a matter of fact, I'll link in the cards here a video, a blister pack video that I just released. What I'm wearing is this palette in that video, and it might be hard to believe, but that is the palette that I used to create the look in that video. Yeah. Anyway, a big, big fan. Next up, we have the Carly Bible palette. This palette got a lot of hate, and I just decided to get it because it was on half off on the Anastasia site, and as it turns out, I really, really like this palette, and I was not a big fan of the cover. I think it's the ugliest cover ever, but as it turns out, I do like it in person. I just didn't like what it looked like on camera. And this is the palette, and everything on the top row I think is absolutely the bomb. I really, really like the colors on the top row. I feel like everything on the bottom row I could reasonably duplicate in the rest of my ABH collection, but the top row is really quite unique to the Bible palette, and I'm very happy to have it for that reason. The second last palette that I have from ABH is the Riviera palette, and I'm not crazy about the canvas top of the palette because I think that it's going to get dirty very, very quickly. But what I do like is the color story, which is very bright, and what has me excited in this palette is actually the colorful mattes on the bottom row. I do like a few of the top row colors. For example, Seaside is beautiful, as is Mediterranean. But really what has me excited is this bottom row and Sails right up here for a brow bone highlight. I do think it is a very interesting palette, and I do like very much the nautical theme that is on the front of the palette. Again, I'm not crazy about the canvas, but I am more interested in sailing these days, and so it does speak to me on more than just an eyeshadow front. And if anything, I think it's very interesting that the Riviera palette is the one that has this kind of a color story. I don't know, it just surprised me quite a bit. But I have not used that palette, the Riviera, anywhere near how much I have used some of the other ones. And finally, I have the Sultry. This is the one that got away, and I just picked it up this December because of the vault that, not the vault, but the container that had the Sultry and a liner, mascara, and eye primer from ABH. And it is more beautiful in person that I think comes through on camera. I was really shocked by how gorgeous it is. It's even nicer than the Amrezy and the Jackie Aina packaging, which I had trouble believing it could be that nice, but what people are saying is true. It is absolutely stunning as a palette. And the color story has kept bugging me, and I thought that I might pick up the Urban Decay Reloaded, but I thought between the two of them that this was really the color story I wanted, and I was really disappointed because Sultry disappeared. And now that it has shown up again, I really jumped at the chance of getting this palette, and I feel like I got it for a fair price given it came as part of a set, and I managed to nab it a little bit on sale. Cyborg, huge fan of it. I haven't used this palette yet. I actually pulled it out of my latest stash for a haul video to show you in this palette collection because I just didn't want to wait. But I have not touched any of this. I'm just excited for a few of the shades, including Twig, Cyborg, Bloom, and Ember. Rose Quartz I already know, but those are some shades that I cannot wait to get into and do a look. And I can guarantee you that these two I'm going to use in a look sooner than later. I'm so happy to have this palette in my collection, and I'm not huge for neutrals, but this one is, I really regretted not getting it, and I'm happy it's in my collection. Just two more palettes to show you from the ABH line, and these are contour palettes. I have the light to medium powder contour, and as you can see, it has received quite a bit of love. I really do like this contour palette. I think it does a great job. And based on my success in the Partners in Cream project, where I basically finished the quad from Cover FX, I decided to get this cream 6-pan from Anastasia because I basically am out of cream contour products in palette form. And I thought that I would try ABH to get a different feel. So I have ABH and I have the Urban Decay that I showed you earlier. Pretty happy with that, and as you can see, I can pop these out and replace them, which I am very happy about. Alright, now last wave of ABH products. So here is the lip palette that I use if somebody is wanting to do a look with me. I just scoop out what it is that I want to use with this person and ensure that I give them an option that is sanitary. That is why I use this lip palette. So I think it is very useful if you do find yourself helping someone else do their makeup. These are newer additions to my collection. This is the Norvina palette that was actually sent to me by mistake by ABH, and when I contacted them they said, just keep it. And I said, thank you very much. I have swatched it and I have used it just a few times at this point. And this is what it looks like. Hopefully I'm not blinding you. Let's just do this. So this is the color story on that one. Now it is not one that I would have picked personally, but I am very happy with the number of purples and pinks in this palette, and also yellows. So those are the ones that I tend to go for. This one, however, is one that I selected specifically from ABH, and I think it's the number 4. Yeah, the volume 4. And not only do I like the color of the palette itself, but what really speaks to me again are the purples, purpley blues, and pinks in this palette. And of course, I'm a sucker for that little yellow punch of color as well. Looking forward to using this one. This one I have not even hauled on my channel yet, but I wanted to show you in this collection video. And finally, these three 9-pan palettes are palettes that I have had my eye on for ages, and I managed to get it in a trio, and they worked out to $17.78 Canadian each, and that is the least amount that I ever thought I could pay for these, so I'm really happy to have nabbed them. This is the one that I'm least interested in, but as it came in a trio, I'm not mad about it whatsoever. And of course, the bottom row is what I am most interested in, this one. But I do feel like I have pretty much that in these two other larger palettes, but still, I will use this as a 9-pan. This one, I really like the greens in it, and I'm quite happy to have a chance to try it. This one had a little bit of chipping during shipping, I guess, but I don't have a problem with it. The only one I'm not super jazzed about is this teal color right here, but pretty much everything else in the color story I'm pretty happy with. I love these light greens, and I'm looking forward to using it. Greens and yellows I'm such a fan of. Now this one, there are a few reds in here that I'm really excited about. This was probably the one that I was the most excited about. I feel like this is a fantastic combo, and anything that has to do with pinks and blues together will look, in my opinion, will look really good. So these three and these are the ones that I'm most excited about in this 9-pan, and this was the 9-pan that had my heart right from the get-go. So again, really looking forward to trying these out, and you will see them in a haul video because they've kind of jumped the queue and made it into the collection because I wanted to show you as complete of a collection of everything I have in one shot. That's it. For the most part, in this part one, I have shown you Anastasia, Beverly Hills, Tarte, and Urban Decay, the vast majority of the palettes that I have from those three brands. I hope you really enjoyed this part one. Stay tuned for parts 2, 3, and 4 that should be coming, trickling in over the next week or so. You asked, I delivered, and will continue to deliver until I'm done with my whole collection. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.